Welcome to Extraterrestrial Reality. Over the past several years, every time I seem to talk about alien intentions, there's always this gloom and doom that comes attached to it. That it looks like they're up to no good. I mean, the fact that they're so secretive, the fact that they abduct people unknowingly, erase their memories for the most part. Some people remember, most people don't. The only way they're able to recover memories is through hypnosis. And so it seems like these creatures are up to no good in the minds of a lot of people, including some researchers like David M. Jacobs, who I always talk about. He's one of my favorite authors in this subject. And he's someone who, unlike a lot of other people out there, is particularly skeptics who never really did any research on this and instead just pontificate from the comfort of their own homes and never actually go out into the field and do any real investigation. Like David M. Jacobs, he has come to the conclusion that these creatures are up to no good, and that they plan on taking over this planet at some point. He calls it the change, and he knows this. He says this because he has worked with well over 1,000 different people who claim to have been abducted. He has put them under hypnosis, and he has written about this in his different books, including The Threat as well as Walking Among Us. And as far as he's concerned, it looks like that at some point in the future, this change is going to entail the human race getting taken over by some insectoid race of alien creatures. And right now, according to Jacobs, what these beings are doing, they have this secret program, this secret hybridization program, where they're creating these half alien, half human beings. There's a whole bunch of them at this point in time already, sprinkled in throughout humanity at this point, according to Jacobs, and that they're living among us. Basically, that's what it's. In fact, the book that I'm referring to, which was published 9 years ago, Walking Among Us, that's what it was about. It was about the fact that a lot of these people who get abducted, they're actually working with what Jacobs now refers to as hybrids, where there's these half alien, half human beings that they look completely human and they just blend right into society. And at some point in the future, there's going to be this change that occurs. And Jacobs concludes at the end of this book, Walking Among Us, that the change is going to be these insectoid creatures, as he calls them, taking over the planet, and it's unknown what happens to the human race. Now, of course, Jacobs hopes that he's wrong. Actually, I hope that he's wrong. I think everyone in the UFO community, anyone who studies this strange phenomenon, understands that this would be terrible, and hopes that he's not correct about this. But the issue is that there really aren't that many other people who've done the kind of research that David M. Jacobs has done. Now, there were other people that have investigated and worked with alien abductees. People like Leo Sprinkle, people like Bud Hopkins, people like John Mack, but really, Jacobs is, he's somebody who's come to a conclusion. A lot of those people didn't come to the kind of conclusions that Jacobs came to. And so this is all we really have to work with. I mean, and his conclusions seem sound. After you read his books and you get to the end, it's like, oh, I guess he's right, because that's what it seems like it is. But after thinking about this, I've come up with a new theory, and maybe it's real, maybe it's not, but it's just something to think about. Maybe this whole change that these alien creatures talk about when people are to the abductees, when they have them on board. Some of these abductees are brought on, and a lot of them are just brought on and they have sperm removed or their eggs removed, and they're just part of this hybridization program. But then there are what Jacobs refers to as special abductees, and these abductees help. These people are given a lot of different other kinds of tasks, like trying to help the hybrids that are here among us, these beings, these half alien, half human creatures that are among us right now, that are sprinkled throughout the globe and blend right in. These special abductees try to help them to conform to our society. According to this book that he's written, Walking Among Us. So, but what if it's not to take over the world? What if the issue is something else? What if the change that they're talking about is they're going to help us at some point in the future, and how they're going to do that required this hybridization program, this integration into our society, and at some point in the future, when things really get out of control here for humankind, they're going to take us off this planet, perhaps. Maybe that's what's going to happen instead. But anyway, before we get there, I just want to read something from Jacob's book here, Walking Among Us, one of his conclusions. He talks about planetary acquisition. And I just want to read this paragraph. This is on page 241. It says, if the aliens want the Earth, humans are an obstacle. Taking over a planet without intelligent life would be much easier than taking over one with an intelligent, technologically adept population that could have the means to resist the invasion. If a technological civilization exists on a targeted planet, in this case Earth, the aliens have several major choices. They can destroy the civilization. They can convince humans that takeover is in their best interest and therefore have a smooth transition, or they can take over the planet and the civilization without the people's knowledge and maintain an intact, alien-controlled global society for future purposes. The first option was not chosen, the second option has not been offered, and the third option appears to be operative. So that's what he thinks. He thinks this is all about planetary acquisition, and that's the main goal, and that's the whole basis for the change. And some of these special abductees, for instance, this is one named Paula. Like, these are all pseudonyms, ain't their real names. He didn't use the real names of the people he worked with in this book. But on page 207, it talks about crowd control. Like, one of the things that these people are these special abductees are being trained for things like flying, how to operate a craft, an alien craft, things like that, and also crowd control. And here's a section on page 207 where Jacobs talks about that. He says, early on, I discovered that some abductees are being trained for controlling crowds of frightened humans. For example, during one onboard training session, Brian was told that it was up to him to keep control of people as they moved in crowds down a certain path. Working in tandem with a hybrid in a specially designed scenario, Brian had to use mental abilities to keep the humans from reaching a river and leaving the city. Paula was shown a large wall screen displaying a street map. A hybrid pointed to where she should stand to control people. The hybrid told her that she was to make sure that panicked people moved toward a waiting UFO as they rushed down a street. Now, think with that in mind. Now, of course, you see why one of the reasons why Jacobs might reached the conclusion that he came to. That's one of the reasons. It looks like there's going to be some kind of a change in the future. What happens to non-abductees is never really mentioned by the aliens. It's usually abductees and a certain small segment of humanity that's going to be affected. What happens to the rest of the people on this planet? It's never stated. But what if what the plan is that they're concerned about our future? I mean, let's look at the whole situation. Think about this situation. Okay, now there were UFO sightings throughout history, even long before 1947. But as people like Richard Dolan will point out to you, they weren't really like anything. We've never seen anything like 1947 and forward. Before 1947, they were far and few and in between. I mean, it just wasn't a lot of UFO encounters. There weren't a lot of alien encounters. There just wasn't. There's just nothing. It seems like they've been interacting with us, and maybe they were just watching us. I mean, this is all part of my new hypothesis. It doesn't make me right. Before I even state anything, I'm just putting this out there. This is a possibility, and it conforms with the research of someone like David M. Jacobs, but not in a bad way, in a good way. But anyway, but then in 1947, they show up in force. Actually, before 1947, there were Foo Fighters seen throughout World War II, and a lot of different pilots on both sides of the conflict during World War II had reported Foo Fighters. And then in 1946, there was the Ghost rockets seen over there in Europe. And then 1947, it was like all of a sudden we're getting bombarded with flying saucers all over the place. And it's just funny. When you think about it, it was shortly after the World War II ended. All of a sudden, here we are. We're inundated by flying saucer reports. And then as time progressed, not only flying saucer reports, alien encounter reports. That started up pretty strongly during the early 1950s, particularly in France in 1954. But if you look at the situation, they show up in force in 1947. That's what it seems like, right? That's what, if you look at the history of this, it looks like starting in 1947, for whatever reason, it seems like UFOs were everywhere. And is it because perhaps we started using atomic bombs? Is that what this was about? It could be. A lot of people think that. So they'd show up because of that. I mean, they could have been monitoring us for centuries, right? And then all of a sudden, when we start, actually, the United States drops two atomic bombs, one on Hiroshima, one on Nagasaki, and then next thing you know, we're surrounded by flying saucers, and then alien encounters, and all these stories start cropping up all over the place. Too many witnesses to count over the years. Millions of people now at this point. From the aliens' point of view, I mean, if you're able to travel incredible distances through space, if somehow you've achieved some sort of this kind of incredible technology, right? You would have to imagine that you'd have to be peaceful. I don't see how the human race is going to go too much further in the future the way we are. I mean, we're killing each other. We're doing it right now. We've never stopped. It's always been ugly. Nothing has changed, right? Really. I mean, some things are worse than others. Okay, the Holocaust is horrifyingly terrible. 6 million people, 6 million Jews alone were murdered. I mean, and then we're dropping atomic bombs now to end conflicts. We had to drop atomic bombs to end conflicts. So maybe from the view, if you're standing outside of the box and you're looking down at this, maybe in the aliens' minds, they're like, okay, this race is doomed. I mean, if they've just dropped they're dropping atomic bombs on themselves now. And it's just a matter of time now. Maybe in their model of our future, we're done. They already understood this way back in the 1940s. The alien presence here that showed up in force after we start dropping atomic bombs, they looked at us and on their model, 99 out of 100 times, we're eventually going to destroy ourselves with nuclear weapons or who knows, right? That's the path we're on. And if you think about some of the things that have happened afterward, like years later, 1994, the Ariel school incident, aliens telepathically communicate with some children at that school. There was over 60 kids that witnessed this, but some of them, a handful of them, were receiving telepathic communication from these beings, and they're telling them, well, there's the technology is bad. You're going to kill yourself. They're trying to give us a warning. And it should also be pointed out that these alien creatures have a propensity to sometimes deactivate nuclear weapons, nuclear missiles stored at silos, or activate them and get them ready for action, as we've learned over the years. They are most certainly interested in our nuclear capabilities and our nuclear weapons, no doubt about it. But it doesn't matter because we're already doomed as far as the aliens are concerned, because it's already started. But once we dropped atomic bombs on the heads of people to other people to end a conflict, that means it's just a matter of time. I mean, it's funny really that we've lasted this long without some sort of a nuclear holocaust. I mean, look at some of the madmen right now in this world who have control over nuclear weapons, like Kim Jong-un, for instance, in North Korea. We have Putin right now in Russia. I mean, but at some point, there's going to be someone who's going to do it, right? That's what it seems like to me. It seems inevitable. I mean, it's funny it didn't happen yet, but it could, to the aliens' point of view, it probably is inevitable. So, but maybe they're not the bad guys here. Maybe the human race is the bad guys in this movie. Maybe that's the whole situation. But they don't want to see us destroy ourselves and become extinct. So this whole what's going on here, all these abductions, all of this stuff that's been going on for years, is getting us ready for the change, which is once the bombs start dropping, or maybe catastrophes caused by the climate change or whatever, right? At some point in the future, they're going to save some of us. They're going to have to take some of us off the planet. The rest of us will end up perishing here. And but meanwhile, there will be some of us getting taken off the planet at some point in the future. And we'll once the bombs start going off, people aren't they're not going to want to willingly all of a sudden there's a giant flying saucer that's landed outside somewhere. You're not going to want to go in there. You're going to be running, screaming in the wild. You're going to be going crazy. But so the aliens are going to training these other people. Right now, some of these special abductees, right, along with hybrids that are all among us too, they're all going to be trying to direct people into these awaiting craft to take us out of here, to take us somewhere else, so we could continue our species before all of us are extinct. I mean, because you have to think, if they made it as far as they did, they must have figured out something where they don't have these kinds of conflicts where they're killing each other all the time. It's just a thought, and it could be the case. This could be something to think about. I mean, it's almost like a Noah's Ark kind of situation, right? In Noah's Ark, of course, the famous Bible story, God said, okay, we're going to, everyone's evil here, and I've had it. You know what? I'm going to kill everyone except for Noah and his family and and that's it. And all these animals. I want you to get two animals, two male and female animals, bring them on this ark, build this ark, save all these animals. Then I'm going to cause it to rain, and I'm going to destroy everything. And we're going to start afresh. Could that be what's happening here? Perhaps it's almost like a Noah's Ark situation where these beings are here, and for all these decades now, since 1947, they see the writing on the wall. Their models tells them that, oh my God, these beings they're gonna cause their own extinction because of this. So we're gonna have to do something. We're gonna try to save them, right? Because when you think of it. Sometimes I have trouble with one of the aspects with Jacob's assertions is I have trouble with the idea that they're this clandestine takeover. When you really think it through, it just doesn't make any sense sometimes to me. It just doesn't make any sense to me sometimes. So you have to wonder if that's not if maybe it's something else. Maybe there is no clandestine takeover. They're clandestinely setting things up to save us in the future from ourselves. That could be what's going on here. And we could be the bad guys in this movie, but and what they're doing is they're trying to set up some sort of a Noah's Ark scenario where they're going to try to save at least some of us. That's why they don't talk about everybody else. They're talking about a segment of humanity. They're not going to be able to save all of us, right? There's over 8 billion people on this planet, and for all we know, maybe some of these animals they probably already have all the animals from this planet, all the specimens they need for with regard to that. Maybe some of the people they've already some people suspect that people who have disappeared were taken by aliens. Maybe that's part of a program. They're actually those people. Some of them could still be alive. Like for instance, maybe Frederick Valentich, who disappeared back in the late 70s. That pilot. Saying there was a UFO there. Maybe he's taken to a place where we're all going to be taken at some point in the future once the bottom falls out here, once we start shooting the missiles at each other. That could be what's going on, and they're just living somewhere else now, and they're trying to make sure that wherever they're going to take the masses, that other people that it's going to work out. So they have to experiment, and they have to take kidnap other humans in advance to make sure everything's going to work out in the future for the masses. That could explain all of that. But we could be the bad guys in this movie. Just yesterday I was reading an article from the Daily Star where Danny Sheehan was talking about potential alien bases, but he also was talking about some of the things that that our government is doing here. And this is what he said. This was a quote from that article from yesterday. He says, there are some inside our national security state he says there are some inside our national security state apparatus that knows this to be true, and they are in fact engaged at the present time attempting to shoot down these UFOs and taking captive the members who pilot those craft. It's an extraordinarily dangerous situation. And then also there was an article from just recently from Christopher Sharp of Liberation Times where he brought something up like this too. He says, a haunting possibility and perhaps a large reason behind the UAP cover-up is the alleged deliberate downing of non-human crafts. Two sources have told Liberation Times that non-human crafts are being brought down using a specific radar waveform repeater, a method which is also used to attract them. So we're talking about we're deliberately trying to shoot them down, and you know why we are. We would be shooting them down perhaps just because we want to get their technology and try to reverse engineer it so we have an upper hand on our enemies in this world, right? That's the reason why we would do that. But maybe we shouldn't be doing that, because if what I'm saying is true, maybe they're here to help us and they're just getting everything prepared for this change. And the change includes getting us off this planet, at least some of us, so we don't go completely extinct and then take us someplace else where maybe we could flourish. Who knows? It could be a good thing that they're doing. That all of this stuff with all these abductions over the years, of course, that's an ugly experience for a lot of people. But if in the grand scheme of things, as far as from where they're sitting, they think it's a good thing. It's a necessary thing. This is what we have to do to prepare this human race for the change that's going to undoubtedly occur at some point in the future, because there's no if they did it once, they'll do it again, and it's gonna next time it happens, it could be completely shattering to the in a magnitude unrealized, undreamable, where everyone on this planet ends up dying because of nuclear fallout or worse. Who knows? I mean, all the catastrophes that we bring onto ourselves. I mean, we're seeing it all the time. We're seeing it right now with some of these hurricanes. It was never as bad as this, 30 years ago. Now look at it. And at the same time, we have more countries in the Middle East, trying to get their hands on nuclear weapons, trying to develop them themselves. I mean, it's just a matter of time. I mean, if any model for humanity that the alien presence here has probably says, oh yeah, we're at some point it's going to guaranteed to happen, no doubt about it, right? And so and meanwhile we're trying to shoot at them when they're actually here to help us. That's a possibility that no one we don't really talk about it. A lot of us think they're here to take over. It's all secret because and that's how I think a lot too. But sometimes it could be something. The reason could be something else, and that's why I'm just pointing it out. I don't know if this is true. It's just a theory, but I think it's something to consider. I mean, we could be what's here. This presence that's here. What the reason for it could be that they know that eventually we're going to kill ourselves, and so in order to prevent us from going completely extinct, they are setting things up to get us out of here when that time comes, should it come. So I just wanted to point that theory out today. It's just something to think about. Anyway, I also want to point out today that I have, I think it's a total of 8 for the past 7 or 8 shows now. I guess it is. I've been doing this poll on Spotify, asking whether certain debunkers are stupid or lying in their assertions. And so I had the one from yesterday's show was asked the question about Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, and that's going to be the last one with those polls. So if you want to, and then the next show I do is tomorrow's show. That's what I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to be talking about those polls. I'm going to be talking about whether these debunkers I've been talking about are stupid or lying. So if you want to participate in that, if you watch my show on YouTube all the time, you could shoot over to the Spotify channel, and I have those polls on each of the last 7 or 8 episodes, and you could vote on them if you'd like. Anyway, I want to say thank you all for joining me today. Until next time.